Well, good day and welcome to you. It is August the 8th, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome everyone to Search for Signs, and just quickly point out, if you want to know more about this information, if you want to see if there's anything to this for yourself or not, I encourage everyone and anyone to check out the websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos. If I was a Gen Zer, I would say they literally give you some wonderful background information about what we talk about. So hopefully you'll look into it. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Night City Nick, James Wambidi, Pharaoh's Jewelers, The Truth, Pamela David, and Nick Younger for taking time out of your day to comment. And if you have a question you would like to ask or post a comment, I always encourage questions. I always encourage comments. If they pertain to what we talk about, we'll talk about them in the next video. Maybe we'll learn something more about this information. So I really do appreciate it. Now, I want to call out a couple things. Night City Nick, James Wambidi, The Truth, and Nick Younger. You guys commented this go around. And this is for you guys and other people who have commented like this over the years. But you guys have commented more than once. And it doesn't take much for me to realize that you guys are interested in this information on some level, right? Might even be starting to think that there might be some truth to this for yourself. I don't know. And there might even be other people out there who haven't commented who find themselves interested in this information or see that there might be some truth to it. And if you are, and if you have, might I suggest, I'm not lecturing, but might I suggest doing two things. One, learn more about this information. If you aren't studying it, learn more about it. Educate yourself better about it. And like I said, you can start with those links. You can even buy some of Benjamin Creme's books. There are links to be able to do that if that's the case. But if you haven't also done this by now, I encourage you guys and anybody else who's listening that find themselves in this boat to start to talk to other people about this information. Now, Maitreya never said that everyone was going to believe this information. So don't expect everybody to believe it. You know what I'm saying? But you might get anything from a stunned look on their face and stunned silence to total blowback, and everywhere in between. But you also might talk to somebody who you think would not be interested at all in this information, and then they end up surprising you because they are interested in it, right? But he did say that within the hearts of each and every person on this planet is the longing for peace and unity, without exception. And the only way to manifest unity and peace is to bring about the principle of sharing, which is his main priority. So if you talk to people about his priorities in that way, you might get a different response. I don't know. I'm just suggesting it to you. But I found that studying it is important. Learning this information is important. Reading about this information, watching Benjamin Creme videos perhaps, you can learn a lot from it. But you can learn more about this information. It can become more real for you even. And you can see that there's more truth to it by just sharing it with other people. And you'll be doing them a service and yourself a service by doing it. But at the very least, if you give somebody hope, I cannot overstate how important hope is today. You know what I mean? In the lives of not only you, but everybody else. So by sharing this information, it is a hopeful message, if you're sharing it right. You know what I mean? So hopefully you'll do that. But like I said, not lecturing, just suggesting. Now, in the others that have commented that I could tell are not interested in this information, don't share it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. Now, Pharaoh's Jewelers is somebody that is not interested at all in this information in that way. But they did ask a question because at the very first sentence, at the very end of it, is a question mark. So therefore, it is a question. Now, the comments that they commented on afterwards, I can say I don't agree with any of those comments. I'm not trying to change your beliefs or anybody's beliefs, so you can keep those beliefs for yourself. But I'll just kind of summarize my my response to it. If you're listening, Pharaoh's Jewelers, don't expect a Christmas card to come for me in the mail this year based on what you said. Not that you're expecting one anyway. But to answer your question, why do you have Djwal Khul at the top left of your picture? And I'm assuming you're talking about the picture in the background of these videos. The simplest explanation would be because I want to. It's my YouTube channel. As long as it doesn't violate the terms and service of YouTube, what's the harm? Now, there's a reason why I'm putting not only his picture, but these other pictures up there is to help acquaint people with these masters in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just in a photograph. Now, his photograph, if you're interested in this information and you want to know more about these masters, that is actually a colorized photo of that master. And he looks older than the other ones, but he is actually the youngest of all the masters, from what he said. He became a master in 1865. From our perspective, quite a long time ago, right around the ending of the American Civil War. So it's been a while, but from the master's point of view, he's a newbie. But he wrote quite a volume of work through the writer Alice Bailey in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. If you're familiar with his work, I'm sure you'll agree with this. It's very scientific and very technical. It reads like a college science textbook for sure. You won't find any mysticism or fluff in it at all, but quite extraordinary work in body of work in itself. But he even admitted that he wasn't writing it for the generations that were alive at that time and not long after that time. So I guess this generation, but for future generations that would understand it more. So maybe in a couple lifetimes, I'll be able to pick it up and go, this is easy. You know what I'm saying? But right now, it's a challenge for me to understand and for me to understand his concepts and so forth. But feel free to try, But he talks about the origins of mankind, about the relationship between humanity and these masters, some of the work of these masters. He talks at great lengths about the energies that govern not only all of humanity, but all of cosmos, the rays and so forth. Quite extraordinary work. But like I said, a challenge to read, very scientific and very technical. But he will be a master that will come out not long after Maitreya is known for who he is. Because Maitreya will eventually introduce every one of these masters at some point. Now, the pictures of these masters, with the exception of Benjamin Creme, this isn't all the masters, but this is some of them. Okay? Now, the master right next to him is the master Koot, who was Pythagoras in a previous lifetime and then incarnated as the Apostle St. John. But his work in the future will be awakening the hearts of all of mankind. So based on what he has to work with, he's going to have a lot of work to do. Now, the one thing I want to point out, between these two, when the Tibetan master, Djwal was a disciple, he was a disciple of Koot, very devoted to Koot, and thought it was his greatest strength, that his devotion to his master, until the master Koot one day kind of shut him down and said, that's not your greatest strength. That's actually your greatest weakness. That's the thing that's holding you back. And it rocked him to his core, according to his own words. And he wasted a lot of time trying to figure that one out. And once he got over his crushed ego about it, he saw that what the master Koot was saying was correct. Now, the other thing, too, is Benjamin Creme said this one time, and you can take it to heart or not, but he said that if you want to know what your greatest weakness is, usually it's the one thing that you hold out there as like you champion about yourself. If I'm not anything, I'm blank. That's typically the one thing that's holding you back. And that was the one thing that he put out there. If I'm not anything, I'm at least a good, strong, pure devotee to the Master Koot. And the Master Koot said, no, that's not your greatest strength. That's your greatest weakness. So something to think about. But none of these masters require or even desire devotion. And that's the one thing that I wanted to get a point across in this video, is their lack of desire for devotion. Because devotion really is an attachment to something. And it could be to a guru, it could be to a spiritual teacher, it could be your idea of a deity, such as the Christians to Jesus and so forth. But it could also be to a spouse, it could be to a girlfriend, it could be to a job, it could be to your bank account, the markets of the world, it could be anything. Whatever you're attached to and you're devoted to, right? So you can't truly be free when you're attached. So none of these masters will be seeking devotees. So just something to think about, even though some of them probably will have a lot of devotees, such as the Master Jesus, who I'm about to speak to right, about him next. But in the top right is an image of Jesus. Now this image was taken from a computer program that had an algorithm that used the Shroud of Turin, or the Turin Shroud, whatever you want to call it, to come up with the face of Jesus. And this might not be how he actually looks, but he is living on the outskirts of Rome, according to Benjamin Creme's master, and has been since the mid-70s. Will eventually be outknown for who he is, of course, after Maitreya's known for who he is. So not to keep saying that over and over again, but in the not-so-distant future, we'll see the Master Jesus too. Eventually, he will be asked by the churches to help clean up some of the distortion and misinterpretations of their texts in the Bible and so forth, to make it truer to who he was when he was in Palestine, which he talked about love, forgiveness. Are you listening to this, Pharaoh's Jewelers? Love, forgiveness, about the need to help the poor and feed the poor in a very simple way. But very much a true teacher in a way, right? So when people talk to me, like this person who commented, if you want to read their comments, quite vile, but anyway, talking about how Jesus is going to come back and destroy his enemies and blood will fill the streets because of that. Don't have to go very far to really know that there's no truth to any of that, based on even just your own texts, right? When Jesus was on the cross and he was about to die, he did not have any enemies. He loved them. He prayed to God and said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." So to think that Jesus would come back at any point and have enemies and destroy his enemies is just a gross misinterpretation of your own scriptures. But this master, the Master Jesus, of course, will be very well known, very well respected, of course, like all the masters, but very well known, and will be teaching the religious and the non-religious about all sorts of things. But, in the main, one of his main jobs will be cleaning up the distortions in the Bible. But I find this image of Jesus to be quite calming and soothing the times that I look at it. So there's something to it. Anyway, below him is the man who kicked this all off, Benjamin Creme, who told the world back in the 70s and for decades that the weighted teacher was back, and elaborated at great length about the priorities of the teacher for humanity and the need for peace, and then eventually made the announcement that Maitreya had given his first television interview. And he passed away in 2016, but you can still go and read his teachings and reading his writings and so forth, and even see videos of him on YouTube and so forth, whatever you want to do. Through the Share International site, too, is a great way to do it. So hopefully you'll look into that, too. He's quite informative in terms of this information. And then below him is a historical painting of the Renaissance writer and philosopher Francis Bacon, who is now one of these masters, the Master Rakoczi. Now, if you're vaguely familiar with the Ascended Master teachings, of course, you'd be familiar with Saint Germain, who a lot of people worship him like the Christians worship Jesus. Again, he doesn't desire any devotees either, but the master, the Saint Germain was his subsequent incarnation, and then he became a master and now is known as the Master Rakoczi, and will eventually be not taking disciples in the same way that these other masters are, like the Master Jesus or the Master Koot Humi, but working mainly with governments around the world, the United Nations probably. And then to the left, this handsome fellow with a beard and a yellow wrap on his head and a nice resting bitch face is their Master Morya. And if you see him, or when you see him in person, don't tell him I said that. It's just between me and you. No, he already knows I say that. He probably already knows I think that about him. Now, to my defense, Alice Bailey even said that he has a very stern look on his face, and if it wasn't for the loving gesture in his eyes, he would be quite an intimidating person, but apparently he's a very loving person. But he will be one of the masters out teaching humanity about what he's going to be teaching humanity about. Let me go back. One of his previous incarnations was the Apostle Peter. And Peter was always known for his courage and his strength and his will, of course. But that's him as a master now. So same kind of thing, but on a higher level, I'm sure. Now, to the left of him is Sai Baba. And that's actually a photograph of Sai Baba, because Sai Baba was actually out in the world for a while. He's the only master who has been before the public eye other than Maitreya. These other masters will eventually be working directly with humanity, but they are waiting for Maitreya to be known for who he is first. Humanity start to accept his teachings, start to learn from him and use and apply him and that kind of thing. And then these masters will start to be introduced one by one. But his work was a little bit different. But he, according to Benjamin Creme's master, is actually a little bit more advanced than Maitreya, who's the head and leader of all these other masters. So a very advanced guy. I'm not so, envious of his spiritual stature or his devotees, but more so his hair, because he had the best hair out of all these guys. And for somebody who's as bald as me, I would love to have a full head of hair like that. But Maitreya did say, and I quote, that everything has its opposites. So in his next life, because he's already lived 2 of them, he will eventually come back again as another Sai Baba in the not-so-distant future. So he might be bald in that next one, because he had nowhere to go but down. I, on the other hand, have nowhere to go but up. So I hope in my next lifetime I have hair like him. But the thing about devotion and Sai Baba, he had a wonderful sense of humor about things. But you can watch his videos on YouTube too, where he's speaking to really, it's a massive audiences, tens of maybe even hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, Trump size, or at least what Trump wants to have in terms of people that listen to him, size crowds, huge crowds. And he had devotees all over the world. Millions upon millions of people looked to him in that way. Some people even worshiped him as God himself. Now, he denounced that stuff. He never claimed to be God. He never claimed or desired devotees in that way. But people looked to him like that. Anyway, the interesting but funny story about him was somebody asked him one time, what do you see or what do you feel when you look out and see all these devotees looking back at you in that way? And he goes, when I look out into the crowd, I only see but one true devotee. And there were, of course, people who were like, am I the one that you see that's truly devoted to you? And no, you're not a true devotee, right? And then he looks at his dog and he goes, the dog is my one true devotee. Again, in a very humorous and simple way, just teaching, he doesn't want devotees, right? None of these masters want devotion on any level like that, because it's an attachment. It's what keeps us bound to, our attachments. But if you're a dog lover, like myself, I have a dog. She's lying on the bed next to me as I'm doing these videos, usually, and she's just waiting for the time for me to stop the video so we can go out and play ball. But she's my one true devotee, too. I couldn't handle another dog like her, because she gives me no personal space. So I couldn't imagine having thousands of devotees either. That would just drive me crazy. So she's my one true devotee. My little Jojo is my one true devotee. But anyway, and even Maitreya himself. I mean, people have accused Maitreya of wanting worshipers in the future. They don't know what they're talking about, because he's even said, I have not come to create followers. If you run after him, you've already lost him. So he's going to be here to teach us how to truly be free. Every one of these masters will be. Now it's kind of a dual thing. You can't be truly free if you're living in abject poverty and starving to death. But you also can't truly be free when you're living with attachments and totally devoted to the markets of the world like the developed world is and so forth, or devoted to an ideology like so many people are. There's nothing wrong with being religious, but to be truly devoted to an ideology is a whole other thing. But they'll tell you that you're enslaving yourself, you're imprisoning yourself with attachments by doing that. And so Maitreya is coming to teach us how to truly be free. So when he says, without sharing there can be no justice, that's part of it, because you can't truly be free unless you have true justice. So, and you can't truly be free if, just like they say about justice, just an injustice to one is an injustice to all. Well, if one person isn't free, then we're all not free on some level. But without justice, there could be no peace, and without peace, there could be no future, to kind of finish his teaching. It's not a future of more in the same. It's a future that's quite extraordinary based on the way that we're living life today. But it's truly a future where every single person, every single one of us, is truly free to be who they are as a divine soul in incarnation. not harming somebody else, not imposing the will on somebody else or having them impose their will on you, but to truly be free to be who you are, creative in that way, loving in that way, and that kind of thing. That's where this is leading to. So devotion doesn't fit into that, because when you're devoted to something, whether it's a guru, somebody like Maitreya who's just a teacher, or even a deity that they think Jesus to be, it enslaves that person. It does. It imprisons them. And none of these masters want that for any one of us. They want us to be truly free, truly manifest our own divinity in that way. So hopefully, by trying to elaborate on a simple question that somebody asked that doesn't agree with anything what I say, we've learned something in the process. So you guys take care. Have a great day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.